Inspired by the recent events in the cybersecurity space that caused absolute pandemonium,
a giant monster is attacking Bikini Bottom.
Major shutdowns globally in what might arguably be considered the biggest cybersecurity incident in all of history. And I want to take a look at the biggest cybersecurity incidents / breaches / big boo-boos to have occurred since the birth of the internet and the rapidly growing technology that we've seen. So I've done some majorly salty late night research, all to answer the question looming in all of our minds. Was the CrowdStrike incident really all that bad? Well, let's compare and contrast the shit out of it using the Mad Hat metrics, of course, that I brewed together in the Mad Hat labs just for this video. Impact. How widespread were the effects of the incident? Who was affected and for how long? Total losses, you know, money, estimated obviously, and the difficulty of the incident. How complicated was it? Are we talking about an expensive-ass zero-day exploit carried out by a nation-state actor? Or was it just someone too stupid to have realized what they gone done did before it was too late? Or my favorite, was it just some kid bored on a Tuesday afternoon in the UK?
A big game, I suppose. It was to see who could be better, a multi-billion dollar agency or a 14-year-old sitting in his bedroom.
Doing as they say, f***ing around and finding out. But for the sake of all of our sanity, I'm going to limit this tier list to the major 10 incidents breaches of all time. And that should be enough to compare and place all of these incidents on the tier list of infamy, ranking them from fail to so bad that it's just plain stupid. Let's begin. On September 8th, 2018, Marriott received an alert from an internal security tool regarding an attempt to access the Starwood guest reservation database in the US, which flagged on an unusual database query. Upon investigating the alert, they come to find out there had been unauthorized access to the Starwood network since 2014. The breach impacted an estimated 500 to 600 million accounts, with an estimated 300 million containing name, mailing address, phone number, email address, passport number, Starwood preferred guest SPG account information, date of birth, gender, arrival and departure information, reservation date, and communication preferences. That's a lot of data. Some even included payment card information, card number, and expiration. But don't worry, folks. It was encrypted using the unbreakable AES-128 encryption algorithm, which has never been broken into before. Oh, they had the encryption keys too. Okay, so lots of people were affected globally. All, and I mean all of their data, which was readily available in clear text. But how did they do it? Now, Marriott has not made any of that publicly available information. So we don't know exactly what happened, but we do know that Starwood had been compromised since 2014, back before Marriott acquired it in 2016. And it took an additional 2 years for Marriott to detect any malicious activity.
No, I'm not sure about that one. I don't know if that checks out.
Because Marriott was not equipped to handle the reservations it had just acquired. So in true company merger fashion, they left this largely unsecured database continue operating, which was confirmed later to contain a remote access Trojan, a rat, and Mimikatz, a tool for sniffing out username password combos in system memory. We can only guess that this is what allowed the malicious bad actors to gain admin privileges and query the database. And as of today, we still don't know who actually did it, but government sources speculate that it was in fact nation-state actors, part of a broader Chinese effort to gain information on American government employees and intelligence officers. Their reasoning? The code and attack patterns matched up with techniques employed by state-sponsored Chinese hackers. When in doubt, blame nation-state actors. The overall difficulty here was low, as it was rooted in what I like to call security comes last. The legacy system was unsecured long enough to allow for a breach. Now, there are currently class action lawsuits against the company, which are still ongoing, it seems.
My dog stepped on a bee.
Total estimated losses and fines combined, from what I can tell, are roughly 150 million, but supposedly could reach as high as $12.5 billion after the class action action lawsuit. With Marriott's net market cap of $62.49 billion, that's a significant hit, but we'll see if we actually get anywhere near that after the class action lawsuit completes. Catastrophic. The total impact was very high. However, the losses for the company are basically nothing, which is ridiculous. Look at their stocks. I think it's safe to say their reputation is unaffected. And the hack was probably as easy as sending a phishing email, probably, and poking around undetected for 4 years. The hacker had time to graduate college before they found them. In October of 2013, Adobe received an alert that the hard drive for one of its application servers was nearing capacity. Further investigation discovered that one or more unauthorized intruders had compromised a public-facing web server and used it to access other servers on Adobe's network, including areas where Adobe stored consumer data. Okay, exploiting a public-facing server, that's difficult, right? Now, Adobe being a leading software company known for products like Photoshop and Adobe Acrobat Reader, a thing I had to troubleshoot a stupid amount of times, to complete dunces who didn't know how to click the sign-in button.
Hey, how about you smash right there? Smash right there! Come on, smash, yeah!
They immediately announced a massive security breach. The breach impacted 153 million Adobe accounts. Not as much as Marriott. The data exposed in the breach included user IDs, encrypted passwords, names, email addresses, and of course, credit card info. So how did it happen? Well, this is somewhat unclear with the information available. The attackers reportedly gained access by targeting a backup server, which was due to be decommissioned. Sure, due to be decommissioned, huh? That's company speak for, we'll replace it when it becomes a problem.
Good afternoon, Bob. I was wondering if I could have $500,000 to upgrade our call center technology.
You serious?
And the server only had customers' passwords and credit card information encrypted. But of course, the report said Adobe had used a single block cipher through the database, resulting in identical passwords having the same ciphertext in the database, which became a bigger issue when the password hints, not encrypted, were the literal password or obvious enough to guess the password. Hints have since been removed, which is probably for the best. How do they gain access to the server, you might ask? Adobe didn't say, of course. But the most likely cause of the breach was the vulnerability in the Cold Fusion servers being deployed by Adobe and hackers abusing that to remotely control web servers running the software. A vulnerability, by the way, that Adobe knew about. That supposedly pushed an update, but conveniently these servers had not gotten that update. Shocking. Or, it could have been a spear phishing campaign. Mail. Equally as likely.
Get a really catchy subject line. Something like, hey, I'm probably going to open that up.
With roughly $1.1 million in attorney fees and undisclosed sums of money to affected users and having its stock value unaffected, this is sadly ranked as just a fail on Adobe's part in the sad history of breaches. But they did respond relatively quickly to the breach, with roughly a couple months spanning in between when hackers were first confirmed to have access to when they finally detected them and actioned on and announced to the public about the breach. Not an epic failure by any means, but still
a failure!
Now, we still don't know who Gondun did it, but security researchers are guessing that the attackers were somewhere in Eastern Europe or Russia, based on the language and location of some of the underground forums where the stolen data was traded.
I can smell the failure!
January 2010, inspectors visiting Natanz uranium enrichment plant in Iran noticed that centrifuges using to enrich uranium gas were failing, and they were failing fast. Replacing the centrifuges did not fix the issue, as there was something more sinister at play. 5 months later, some IT nerds finally found the culprit after troubleshooting computers that had been randomly crashing and rebooting. They discovered the world's first digital weapon, infamously known as Stuxnet, a worm specifically designed to disrupt Iran's nuclear program. Now, obviously, the impact here was to Iran's SCADA system, but by nature, a worm tries to infect everything and anything around it. So that's what it did. Traces of this worm can be seen globally, but the only real impact was to what the worm was intended to do, and hard-coded to actually attack. Siemens, Step 7, software. a Windows-based software used to program industrial control systems that operate specific equipment in Iran's case, specifically the operation of these centrifuges. Now, monetary loss is kind of hard to gauge here since Iran didn't release numbers as far as I could find, but if we lowball the estimate costs of repairs, about 1,000 replaced centrifuges, it's probably $50 million or more. Now, how did Stuxnet infiltrate Iran's air-gapped systems? Originally, it was thought to have been delivered via a USB stick that someone just tossed and hoped it would get plugged in. But new information has surfaced, January of this year, that Stuxnet was instead loaded into a water pump near the Iranian Natanz nuclear facility. Simple, yet effective. And with reports stating that this worm cost upwards of $1 billion to create, this was one sophisticated and expensive cyber attack to carry out. This was no script kiddie, and no one's taking the rap for this, but a lot of places are pointing fingers at the US and Israel for doing it. Now, if the worm targeted more than PLCs, this would have been apocalyptic, but because the impact was relatively low and contained within Iran's nuclear facility, gotta drop it down a notch to blighting, which is fitting for a worm, as it did in fact spread quite like a blight. On April 4, 2011, the hacktivist group Anonymous launched a targeted distributed denial of service attack on Sony's PlayStation network, in retaliation for Sony's legal actions against hackers known as GeoHot and Graph Chocolo. The attack by Anonymous disrupted the PlayStation network for 3 days before they suspended it, realizing that it was negatively impacting consumers, which is not who they were targeting. Sony experienced additional issues on April 19th when the PlayStation network went down again, revealing a significant security breach affecting 77 million users. Sony said an illegal and unauthorized person, quote unquote, got access to people's names, addresses, email addresses, birth dates, usernames, passwords, logins, security questions, and probably credit card info. Now, the company did say it saw no evidence that credit cards were stolen, but it did add, out of an abundance of caution, we are advising you that your credit card number, excluding security code, and expiration date may have been obtained. Right. Sounds like you just don't want to say that it was taken. Now, the exact methods and tools used by the hackers is still unknown, with no specific malware mentioned anywhere. But Sony's chief information officer, CIO, this dude, believed that the application server was the weakest link, with the elite hacker able to exploit vulnerabilities on it. Sounds complicated, but from the sounds of it, the application server was poorly secured, and the database as well, as far as I can tell, with reports stating the hack was performed via very simple single SQL injection methods by a hacker group named lulzsec. Ooh, you hate to see that, but I'm not surprised. Hacks are rarely sophisticated, it seems, and Sony stated that the outage cost roughly 171 million, peanuts to Sony really, and while we can see a small drop in their stock price after the breach, it has since rebounded and rebuilt its reputation. And considering this was done from some random hacker group who appeared to have just been bored and Sony was just coincidentally their target, that they used as their playground for fun, and the relatively low costs to the company and total users impacted, sad that 77 million users is low, but here we are. This is our life now. I'd rank it as disastrous, since it was far more impactful than Adobe's breach. In March 2017, personal identifying data of hundreds of millions of people were stolen from Equifax, one of the credit reporting agencies that assess the financial health of nearly everyone in the United States. And shortly after, on September 7th, 2017, Equifax announced that someone had breached the data of approximately 143 million US consumers. The hackers did not access the data from Equifax's core consumer credit reporting databases, but from the company's US online dispute portal web application. I guess that's not as bad then? Oh shit, that's 40% of Americans. Oh shit. The data included names, social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, and driver's license numbers. You know, everything that you would need to know to open up a new credit line.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
Nice. I've always said at this point, if someone wants that information on you and they give a shit enough to look for it, they're gonna find it online somewhere. The attackers were active with Equifax's networks for 76 days without being discovered. Bruh, the breach was caused by a severe security vulnerability in Apache struts that allowed the attackers to exploit unpatched systems. And unsurprisingly enough, they had a patch released on March 7th, and Equifax was instructed to apply it following a penetration test, but the patch was never implemented by the IT team. Come on, what the f? Having worked in security for a minute now, I'm sensing a pattern in patching policies. Getting told to update, not updating, and this goes on endlessly. So, some hacker discovered the unpatched version of Apache Strut software running on a server in Equifax's DMZ, an internet-facing server, and went to town using what is considered to be beginner or novice level hacking. Why did it take so long to detect the exfiltration? Well, Equifax's failure to renew a crucial public key certificate meant that their data exfiltration detection tools were unable to inspect encrypted traffic, allowing the hackers to operate undetected. Now, Equifax has since agreed to a settlement that will cost them $1.38 billion, and that's not including the over $1 billion they've already spent upgrading their security.
Holy look at all this damage!
Which isn't really a cost induced by the breach, or created by it really, but something that they should have spent before to secure their shit. And ultimately, the US government blamed Chinese military-backed hackers and charged them in 2020. You just can't make this up. These little bits of update security policies get overlooked, and all of a sudden, you have an apocalyptic breach. Definitely one for the record books for overall impact for such little hacking knowledge needed. In December of 2013, credit card numbers of almost 40 million customers were stolen from a retail giant known as Target, which led into another announcement in January 2014, where Target announced that personal identifiable information, PII, data in the form of names, phone numbers, addresses, email addresses, of up to 70 million customers were stolen as well. How'd that happen? Well, in early 2013, attackers conducted extensive reconnaissance on Target and its vendors, uncovering details about Target's technical infrastructure through a Microsoft case study. They exploited vulnerabilities in third-party vendor Fazio Mechanical, some HVAC company, using a phishing attack to install Citadel malware and gain access to Target's network on November 12, 2013. Now, the company could have prevented this if they had real-time detection, but instead they were using a free version of Malwarebytes. Oh my god. The attackers used an administrative account to navigate to Target's network, eventually finding and exploiting a vulnerability in a Windows domain controller to access the point-of-sale systems. By November 30th, a custom black point-of-sale malware was installed on most point-of-sale systems. And funny enough, this malware is available for sale in the online black market for roughly $2,000. Just goes to show you, you don't need to know how to write malware or hack like a pro. Just a little money on the black market, and basic hacking can get you into pretty much anywhere these days, or at least back then. The saddest bit of all, that despite major alerts firing off in Target's environment, their intrusion detection system, and detection of malicious behavior by their semantic antivirus, no action was taken by the security team. What? The hackers even managed to update the malware a few times, which fired off even more alerts. And on December 2nd, hackers exfiltrated data to servers in Eastern Europe with another security tool called FireEye detecting the breach and notifying staff in India, who then relayed the alerts to the staff in the US, who did nothing again. The deed was done, with stolen credit card information sold on the black market. These people were literally kicking back, casually breaking in, messing around, and copy-pasting data overseas. Now, this is an interesting case because it involves a third-party vendor breach and failure combined with some major no-shits given to the alerts that triggered in Target's network. With an estimated 200 million and Target stock doing just fine, it's almost as if customers didn't care about this breach. They just kept on going with their Target trips and sipping on their Starbucks fraps. Not a care in the world. Now, I'd say given the sophistication of the attack, all the recon involved, and exploitation of technical vulnerabilities, paired with evading their detection systems, sort of, this was pretty catastrophic. If there was more data available to the hackers, I'm sure they would have taken it. Luckily, they were limited to what Target had. Otherwise, we'd be looking at an apocalyptic breach. On May 12, 2017, a worm spread to more than 200,000 computers in over 150 countries. Stuxnet 2.0? Nah, this was none other than the WannaCry ransomware, affecting companies like FedEx, Honda, Nissan, and the UK's National Health Service, the NHS. Ambulances were having to be rerouted. Absolute pandemonium. The WannaCry attack occurred in the span of 4 days, but it left people with a lot of work on their hands. While infected systems in over 150 countries resulted in roughly $100,000 payout for the attackers, North Korea. Duh. Who else would want to send out that kind of ransomware worm that could take out countries' infrastructure? This guy would. Now, the actual damages induced were reported in the $4 billion range. Damn, that's a lot of WoW subscriptions. Now, this, of course, spread across multiple countries and agencies, but still, God damn. Now, how did all this happen? Imagine a plague, but instead of humans, it's Windows 7 machines. Scary times. Now, WannaCry was unique due to its worm-like nature, allowing it to self-replicate and spread rapidly across networks from infected computers. But unlike typical ransomware that infects devices via malicious sites or links, WannaCry used infected devices to propagate itself. It exploited an NSA-discovered vulnerability, Eternal Blue. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. And another backdoor, Double Pulsar, to infect primarily Windows 7 devices. The attack began in April 2017 in Asia, spreading quickly through networked devices. And if not for the quick thinking of this guy, Marcus Hutchins, a cybersecurity researcher who was working in loose collaboration with the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre.
Saying that I'm a hero, I mean, I sort of just registered this domain for tracking.
Researched the malware and discovered a kill switch, which more or less just stopped the ransomware entirely from screwing over the rest of the world that it had not yet had time to reach. At 22, he single-handedly put a stop to the worst cyber attack the world had ever seen. What have you done with your life? You stop a national cyber attack yet? That's what I thought. Get to work. Anyways, this shit went full blight on us, so naturally it's blighting for this cyber attack. In June 2017, the world was introduced to the most destructive malware ever deployed. We just got WannaCry. Damn, 2017 was a fun year. I had no clue. I was in my second year of my cybersecurity program, ignoring my assignments to play League of Legends Pooter games. Now, while Ukraine was the primary target here, NotPetya quickly spread to more than 60 countries, destroying the computer systems of thousands of multinationals. Between WannaCry and this, system admins and security analysts at the time must have had their hands full of resignations.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Because, you know, security kind of is and always has been the last thing on the C-suite's mind. First thing being money.
I wonder what $1 million even smells like.
Now, much like the WannaCry attack, it also used the vulnerability exploit known as Eternal Blue to spread like crazy because people didn't install the fix to the Eternal Blue patch when it was first available. That's what you get. NotPetya spread through the network on its own, extracting admin credentials and schedules a task to reboot the machine. As soon as the victim reboots their machine, NotPetya overwrites the master boot record with a malicious payload that encrypts the full disk. Now, it asks for a ransom, but it doesn't actually have a decryption key because this was not a financially driven attack. It was Russia. But you move! Attempting to more or less fuck over Ukraine. What? You thought the war in Ukraine was a new thing? Nah, there's always been beef. Now, one affected company was global transport and logistics giant Maersk, where NotPetya destroyed all end-user devices, including 49,000 laptops. Because this was not a traditional ransomware that would actually release your files if you paid the ransom, it was designed to brick everything. A wiper, as they're called. In total, with companies Rakit, Benchkizer, Mondelez International, Nuance Communications, FedEx. Did you not learn your lesson the first time with WannaCry? Honestly, this doesn't surprise me. FedEx kind of sucks. There's a reason this meme exists. $10 billion in estimated losses later due to this malware. I'm sorry, but god damn, that's a step above WannaCry. We've reached apocalyptic levels of damage, and all of this could have been avoided if you just pushed the update to all devices. Shit, don't do that. Test the update, then push it. We'll see why that's important in a minute here. Now, I know what you're thinking. It can't possibly get any worse than the ones I've covered, right? It can, and it did. In 2013 and 2014, a major internet service provider, Yahoo, faced two massive data breaches that led to the theft of sensitive information from billions of its users. 3 billion users. All of its users.
The largest breach in history.
The compromised data included usernames, email addresses, birth dates, phone numbers, and encrypted passwords. Credit cards too? No, luckily not. But I wouldn't put it past these regular users to reuse their passwords, I don't know, in something like their login for their bank? Nah, there's no way people do that. How was Yahoo affected, you ask? Well, it paid around $150 million in settlement and fees, and reduced its sale price to Verizon by $350 million. Okay. That they should feel that, right? Oh shit, it's sold for $4.8 billion.
My disappointment is immeasurable. and my day is ruined.
Leak every bit of your user's data and still get paid. This is the world we live in. That is some grade A apocalypse right there. So at long last, how does CrowdStrike incident compare to all these and rank on our wonderful tier list of infamy? Well, on July 19th, 2024, an estimated 8.5 million Windows computers worldwide crashed and were unable to reboot, stuck in a blue screen of death that regular users had no hope of fixing. All because CrowdStrike released an update to a file that the kernel communicates with. So after the update, the kernel was like, yo file, what's up? And the file was like, I got nothing. Literally, it had nothing. It had null pointers. So combining that with other issues involved in the update, it bricked the kernel, more or less, and you get the blue screen. Now, I will say it was an easy fix, but one that required system admins and IT professionals to more or less manually fix. And it's basically impossible to estimate the amount of people that were affected by this. No longer people in the company that were affected, but it's disruptions everywhere. Disruptions included canceled flights, hospital surgeries, and 911 system outages. Fortune 500 companies are estimated at $5.4 billion in losses, excluding Microsoft's share.
God damn it, I tried.
Indicating a significant operation cost. Insured losses through cyber insurance from $540 million to $1.08 billion, covering only 10 to 20% of the total impact to these Fortune 500 companies. Delta Airlines alone reported $500 million in losses over the 5 days of this outage. And that's not including what the people lost by not being able to get on their flights. That's not including hotels, their reserved transportation, none of that. It's huge, it's massive. This is unprecedented size.
That's what she said.
And you know what we don't have to estimate? This shit. CrowdStrike lost its market value by $25 billion as a result, and it still looks like it's going down. So we have millions of Windows computers blue screening, and we have billions of dollars in losses. Now, I ain't no math wizard, but them numbers are anomalous. We haven't seen this kind of shit in an incident ever. Now, think about if CrowdStrike had been breached and someone was able to push out something truly malicious to all of its wonderful customers. Unimaginable. This incident was simply stupid.
How does it feel?